Hello everybody, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and today we're going to be looking at an animation package called Creature. This is a 2D animation package along the same lines as Spline, Dragonbones, and Spriter, as well as cutout animation tools from Blender. Now I've covered a number of those in the past, and this again is right down the same line, so please do not ask me to compare and contrast or to pick one. First off, I don't do 2D animation for a living. I've evaluated each one at different points in time, so I really can't give you an apples to apples comparison. But what I can do today is show you Creature, and you can make that decision for yourself. Now, if you're not familiar with any of those tools, don't worry, we'll be getting through it as we go. Now, straight out, acquiring Creature is a little confusing. It's actually available from two different people, or from a developer and a publisher, or two different publishers. I'm not actually sure how the relationships go here, but you can get it from Kestrel Moon, or you can get it from Deep Motion. Now, if you get it from Kestrel Moon, it costs, for perpetual license, $100. So basically pay once, $100 for the basic version, and you're good to go. Now if you're using it for game development and you want the exporters though, you're going to want the Pro version, which is upgraded to Pro from basic for $199. That leads me to believe $300, but I'm not 100% if my math is right there or the wording is wrong. So it's either $200 or $300, as we're going to see in a second. And the different versions for what you can get, and there is a trial version which you can do everything we're about to show today for the most part. You just can't save. But you'll see the different features right here. Now where you're going to get tripped up and need to upgrade is if you're here for game development. The game development exporter is a Pro only feature. Oh wait a minute, no, basic. All right, never mind. You're good to go as a game developer with the basic package as well. I thought that was the dividing line. But some of the advanced animation stuff is only in the advanced version. Now the catch is, if you make more than 100K a year, then you got to buy it from I'm still in Kestrel, Deep Motion. And Deep Motion's pricing is a lot more random. It's $20 a month or $200 a year, so it's cheaper here for the indie package, but that is also limited to 100K a year, and if your company makes more than 100K a year, it's $2,000, either one time or annually, which again is kind of strange pricing structure they've got. But enough of pricing, let's jump right in and actually take a look at it. Now, here we go. This is the Pro version you're about to see in action, and I'm going to stick to mostly demos. Again, I'm not a 2D guy, so it's a lot easier for me to use good examples as opposed to muddle through my own. But if you were to go ahead and create your own project, you can do it basically one of four ways. The three that are shown here: you can use an image atlas, you can use a PSD file and basically have each body part across different layers, and that'll make sense in a second, as will the image atlas thing. An image atlas is just a sprite sheet, a bunch of different body parts all together on the same sheet. Or you can create it from a 3D mesh. Now unfortunately, every time I did this, it exploded, which is a shame, because this is actually probably the most interesting part, because you can come in here, pick an object file, pick a texture file for it, pick a normal map for that texture, like so, and then you could theoretically output that as a project. Unfortunately, every time I've done it, I've experienced a crash, but it would be very cool to actually automatically have this turn your 3D assets into 2D sprite sheets ready to go in Creature, but again, I couldn't get it to work. Now, another thing that's important here is this runtimes concept. Now, if you're a game developer, the runtime allows you to actually take the animation data from Creature and export it into a JSON format for a number of different game engines. You're seeing the most common ones here: Unreal Engine, Unity, Godot, WebGL, and Haxe. But there's also COATools 2DX, LibGDX, Three.js, and a couple of other engines as well. So it's really well represented in the runtimes platform. So that allows you to do more than just what you would do with a normal sprite animation. It gives you more detailed controls. But now let's jump in with a demo project that kind of illustrates exactly what Creature is all about. And here, you're basically going through three different stages with Creature: meshing, rigging, and animating. So we'll start with meshing. Meshing is where you take those various different, well, you take that sprite sheet I was talking about. So here you see one image with 5 different pieces all together, like so. And then what this is doing is basically doing boundary polygonal meshing on it. Now we could remesh, we could change things, we could sculpt them down. So let's say, for example, if we didn't want this mesh to go up to this little flat portion right here, we could erase those bits of polygons, but for the most part the defaults work, and we'll stick with it. So then once you've got your image imported and meshed, what we do is assemble said image. So that involves two things. First off, what we do is we take the various different pieces that we're working with, so like for example there is his head, and then we just basically turn them back into a single animatable object. And then behind that we do a rig. Now rig, switch over here to bone mode. There you can see all the various different bones that go together to animate this guy. So you're creating a hierarchy of bones, and those bones influence the underlying image, or the polygon that image is mapped to. Still, again, pretty straightforward. You can change the weighting of each particular bone as you're going through this. You can change your parenting, etc. But for the most part, you're just drawing a skeleton that's going to control the underlying system. And then once you've got everything set up right, so you know you've got all your things placed, your body parts are in place where you need them to be, like so. And then you go and put all your bones in, and then if you want, you can test it. And test mode allows you to basically grab bones and move them around and see what they do to your. So out of test mode. So there we go. We're fully rigged. Now you go into the animation side of things. Now animation is frame by frame. So what we're doing, we're going to select all of the bones in the scene, and you'll see down below in the timeline, all of the controllers are showing. So you got all the various different controllers that have been applied, and you'll see over here what those controllers are. So we got this bone, for example, which is his head bone here, is a mesh smooth IK rotate motor. We'll get into what exactly that means over time, but essentially this is a straight out rigged animated system. Now what you're going to care about though is these guys. So this is an FK, or forward kinematic motor. So what it allows you to do is animate over time. So here's your frames over time. It allows you to set up animations basically by forward kinematic. Basically follows that point in time. So you see here we've got our various different frames of animation. So we can do a switch over to the attack. And you'll see up here there is a preview of it as it plays through the frames. And so that is the attack animation we're looking at. You can zoom in here, it zooms in there as well. Or we can again select our bones and we can scrub through the scene. So let me just zoom that out. So we can, oops, I didn't mean to select all those. So we can scrub across the scene. There's the attack animation. So see how it goes. Well, the cool thing is, so see the tip of that sword, it's being controlled with an FK motor as well. And what that means is if we grab that guy, it will, actually it's easier to show with the foot. If you grab the foot, yeah, why are you not working the way I expect it to? There. The body follows it. So that's how forward kinematics works. So basically the rest of the bones are following this particular bone. So it makes it easy to do a walking animation. And you're just kind of going through time, and then for each spot you like it, you create a frame of animation. Like so. And then that allows you, over your timeline, you create your various different clips of animation. So we'll go here back to, we'll go to running. And there you can see the end result. And then once again, I'll select all the bones and we'll scrub across. Oh, I keep missing. Like so. So those are the frames of animation that are controlling that. And if we wanted to just tweak this animation for a bit, so say for example right here, I want this foot to be further forward. All right, why are you not in FK mode? Something I'm doing wrong there. But that is pretty much the gist of how your animation and your setting of your scenes go. But we're kind of just at the very minimums of it. So that's what you would get in your basic. Your motors aren't really coming into effect here. Now let's take a look at another example. All right, and this is probably as simple as examples actually get, because here we are in the meshing portion, and you can see it's literally just one large image. Automatically meshed to do its bounding areas, but pretty straightforward. We go into the rigging for it, and once again, pretty straightforward. So there is actually, come on, let's go to bone mode. So you see here, we do have a number of bones controlling this, so it can slowly shimmer and shift over time. But what I'm really here to show you is the motor functionality. So let's go over one more to animate. So here we are in the animation mode. And once again, you can move bones around, and it will affect the underlying surface. Like so. Now you'll notice since we've got a single image, the influence here isn't painted right on that guy, so it's pulling over this other image. But let's go ahead and actually do the preview on this one. So you can see the animation here is pretty straightforward. It's just this guy moving back and forth. Like so it's kind of a static. It's kind of cool though, because this isn't a cut up image. This is literally just a single picture. But look at the eyes. See the eyes blinking? Well, that is probably about the most basic example of a motor that I can illustrate. Let me just, so around 10 and around 20 or so, no, 40. there's a pair of blink animations going on for this guy. So a lot of it's bone animated, but there's also that blinking going on. Well, that is being done. Let's go here over to regions, like so, and that's using a motor. So I'm going to edit the motor that's here. I don't really know why there's that author here, but let's go across to animate. So this is the animation mode. I can pick, so we've got these two motors going on, right there and right there. And what this is basically just doing is translation. So you see the keys that have been set for it, right here, and then right there, right there. And those are, if I scroll down, so you see there's the scale. So right there, scale 1 in the y-axis to 0. So that's when the eyes are closed. And then here is when they're open, and it's scaled to the 1. So what I could do, for example, is let's take that key and we'll just shift it to the right. So now one of his eyes, so we'll leave here, so I'm done animating this guy. So you see, he's now got a lazy eye, and that's really all we've accomplished there, but you can see the one eye is going to blink and then open, and then the other one's going to take twice as long to open. But that is a very, very simple motor in action, and motors are basically programmatic. So you can see here what you can do with them. You can do a polygonal cage that you can deform a shape over time. You can flap, like flapping of a wing. You can do physics using soft body physics. There's actually quite a few things you can do here. So I'll use a very quick example. Let's go back to that ninja. So open recent, we'll bring up that ninja. No saving. So we're back in the ninja. We'll go to animation for him, and then what I'm going to do is go into regions. And remember, this guy, regions are basically all those pieces we started with. Well, the one region I'm interested in at this point is the sword. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to install a physics motor on that thing. All right, so there it is now installed. I can edit that motor, and now what I'm basically doing is saying, you know, which is solid and which one is going to be afflicted by gravity. So I'm in glue mode. I'm going to paint the areas that are not affected, I think, like so. So half of our sword is pretty firm, the rest is not doing so great. So now that we've made that physics motor applied on here, let's go select our image, scrub across time, and watch what happens to our poor sword. Nice. So, and it's pretty much more profound if we show it in the attack. I basically just turned our sword into a whip. Come on, why did you not switch? All right. Oh, is it not carried across? All right, I'm gonna have to do the same thing here. So regions, sword, install, physics, click, edit, and then let's paint the shaft so that it doesn't go. So I'll make half of the blade floppy. And we'll reduce the flexibility a little bit. Oh, I can't. All right, let's finish editing. There we go. So now when I do my animation, so you can see him right there, or we could go here, and now you'll see that our sword is a little bit more floppy than it was before. And you see in the top animation preview the end result that's going on. And beyond this point, I'm going to be butchering because I'm not an advanced level user here at all. We saw earlier the forward kinematic, so you can set your bone structure up so that they'll follow a particular one. You can do the exact opposite also with the form of reverse or inverse kinematic. Those are totally normal. Those aren't necessarily motors. But there is, again, the FK motor, bend physics motor, IK motor, leg motors for simulating a 3-bone walk structure, path motors, pin rope motors, etc. So this is where a lot of the power comes in. So instead of basically having to do bones and animating by hands, you're applying these motors that do the animation to your bones themselves. It's pretty cool stuff, but again, I will butcher it in my particular exam. Now we get into the rest of the stuff, kind of more advanced. You can see like the hierarchy of your rig, and when your rig starts getting more complex, this is definitely more useful, but it's a way of navigating through the control points on it, especially handy if you're using a multiple monitor environment kind of thing. You can bring in motion capture animation data. We saw over here in animate, there's, navigate through, but what we want to do is there. So here is our new whip guy. Let's start at the beginning. Animate, play. So it's not particularly useful, but if we were dealing with a soft body, that would be much cooler. So that was shift space to play. So yeah, all your controls are up here. You've got your rig controls here. You can change your weighting, your moving, etc. But these all, of course, these menus disappear when you switch between the different modes. So for example, if I go back to the rigging menu, and then I get my rig commands, but my animation's obviously all destroyed. So I go back to my animation, and we get the animate option. Yeah, you can bring in sounds if you wish to go along with your timeline, so you can sync this up with sound, especially if you're doing lip syncing or voice work. And then what's kind of cool and incredibly strange is the post-processing stuff right here. And you can do some really cool things here. Basically, if you're rendering out results, I can go in here and add a video filter on it, for example, say pixel art, and you will see it automatically pixel artified my image here. And then I could go ahead and say make an animated GIF out of this animation and do an export. Let's throw this on my desktop. So I'm going to create a animation called test that basically goes through all the various frames of our animation and then well beyond, actually. I don't know how many frames I told it to make. I guess I could have probably edited that down. So we'll give this a second. In fact, I'll get back to you in a second. All right, and now it's complete. Come down here, you can see if I run the test. I think photos will show an animated GIF. So here is the end result. Kind of cool, and I kind of admit, actually, their pixel filter is pretty solid there. Yeah, that's kind of it. Get out of there. Let's head on back over. So that is one of the options you've got. You've got this basically rendering option. We could also have created a movie or a sequence of frames if we wished. But what you're probably most interested in if you're a game developer is to export the animations out, in which case you would pick this guy right here, and we have a pair of options. We can bring it out images or video, or we can bring it out for a game engine. If we choose game engine, then we have choice of animation clips to bring out, the speed to export out, the size of the Atlas file to generate, size of the JSON files that are being made or being shown here. You got various different options. You can optimize the frame count, the size of the files, etc. that are being brought out. And then once you've got it, just go ahead and click export, and then you can now take that loaded file and use it in your game engine of choice. Now, if your game engine does not specifically support Creature or there's not a runtime for it, then you of course could just export it straight out as an image file and dump it straight out to one of these various different formats, including, interestingly enough, FBX format, which I think will give you basically textured images, quads. I'm guessing anyways, I haven't actually done that one. But that is basically Creature. Now I am really going over glossing over the various different motors. That's where a lot of the power is. It's also where a lot of my misunderstandings of this guy also come in. But this, again, is where you can do some really cool things with Creature. And I'll just finish up on showing you some of their other example projects. For example, here is an anime face test. These are all downloadable from their site. So here it is rigged, and then here it is animated. So you see, animating the hair is being animated. So the hair is being animated using a FK mesh. We got a rotate cycle motor going on here. All right, so next up, let's go show you another one. So we've got, oops, that's not it. File, open recent, and let's show you the Reaper. This is the one from the title screen. So when we first came in here, the graphic you saw in the background is this guy. And as you can see, it's literally just a cut up static image that has then been rigged. So You'll see the rig is, I always do that. The rig is pretty complex actually, but it's a number of bones going along each of the surface or his wings, etc. And then we'll go into animate. You'll see once again it is a bunch of, so we've got a mesh bend, mesh rotate, cycle motors, etc. that are controlling this guy. And then let me see if I can show you nicely. So there is the actual animation playing on him. It's pretty cool stuff. Again, I don't have the familiarity with all of them, especially not at the exact same time to tell you which one you should go with. But I have shown you some of the capabilities of Creature, and the truth of the matter is I'm only showing you very surface level. There's a lot more behind the scenes. But if this looks like something you're interested in, do be sure to check out the trial. I'm not sure the limitations on it, but yeah, there again, we got a force field here that's pulling those surfaces over. And we could add other fields. So actually, that's the only one we've got. We've got warps. We could add a warp in. Oops, I didn't actually do it. So edit the warp. So you can have things that go around that surface are going to warp out as they come into contact with it, etc. So again, I'm only really showing you the surface here because I don't want this to be a 3-hour-long video, and I'm not particularly competent in the underlying surfaces that we're dealing with. But I think I've given you an idea, at least, of what Creature entails. Don't know if that looks interesting to you or not. Do let me know. Let me know what you think of their pricing too. I'm not sure where my opinion lies on that. I think their basics priced appropriately. I think it's pretty much paired to. But when you start getting over to that pro level pricing, I think it ramped up too much. Like for enterprise, $2,000's not too bad. But for a company that makes 150, 200K a year, for $2,000 to go to a single package, that's a pretty bitter pill. You're talking to get into my and max level pricing on that one. Again, I've got nothing against commercial level software, and I can understand how, if you're a professional animation house, that it's easily worth that amount of money. But I think they're leaving a whole segment behind. They should probably do another revenue tier somewhere in the middle. Maybe do it if you have 1 to 5 developers tier or 1 to 5 artist tier, and then 5+. I don't know, but that's the area that kind of stood out to me. That $2,000 a year just seemed a little harsh. But otherwise, great little package. Works well on DPI. One of those things when I first got it, it did not scale for crap on my machine, but there's been 4 releases, I think, in the 3 months since I got it, and it's gotten a heck of a lot more usable on high DPI displays in that period of time. So it's a very well supported, well updated application. Doesn't seem to have the biggest community behind it, but definitely worth checking out. So once again, if you are interested in grabbing it, if you head on over to kestrelmoon.com, there is a trial version available to download. The only real catch is that it's save limited, but you should be able to get an idea if it's right for you or not. All right, so that's it for now. Again, a little rambly. This guy actually presented me a little bit of trouble because it's so complex. I actually, in some ways, need to dedicate more time to it than I do, but I'm not a 2D artist. I'm not using this in production, so it's hard for me to get that deep with it. So this is a compromise video. Hopefully I did an effective job of showing you what Creature's all about. Sorry about the cameo from my dog. And that is it. I hope you found that useful, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.